What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and continuing my series of end of the year top list video. Now that we've gotten the worst movies out of the way, it's time to share with you guys my top 10 best movies that I saw this year. Now, like always, this is my own personal opinion, and just in case you didn't get a chance to see my worst list, I'll leave a link right here in this general facility and in the description down below so you can check out that video before you check out this video. But jumping right into number 10 with the really surprise entry, which is something I didn't even get a chance to see in theaters. That is Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I'll admit, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is a signifying proof that as long as Marvel makes something entertaining, they can make anything into a film. And although I have to admit that this was a very entertaining movie for someone who doesn't know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy, I have to say, this was certainly probably one of the best superhero team movies that I've seen in a very long time. The only downside is that I personally didn't really feel like I needed to really get to know them more in terms of outside the movies. Like, I was entertained with all the great cast members, especially Groot. I mean, geez, don't mess with that tree. But I wasn't as invested into these guys' characters so much to get into the comic books. So, although this really is, in my opinion, the biggest surprise of the year in terms of box office success, this was certainly a great experience to watch it in the way I did, although I wish I could have seen this in theaters. And I'm sure that, hopefully we will, well, actually, I take it back, we're definitely going to get Guardians 2. And hopefully, maybe that time around, I'll be more interested in getting to know these characters. That's why it's number 10 on this list. Going on into number 9 is a movie that I'm sure not a lot of you saw in theaters, but I hope you guys got a chance to see this, and that is The Raid 2. Now, if you guys got a chance to see my Raid 1 review, you would know that that was the best action movie I had seen in decades. And I'm only 24, so I haven't really been around for that long. But I will say this, Raid 2 took everything that the Raid 1 did right, which was pretty much everything, and simply elevated it to a whole nother level. I mean, if you thought the fight scenes in the first one were crazy, you ain't seen anything, because they take it to a whole nother level. They managed to use the environment in unique ways. There's even a much more interesting story with our main protagonist kind of being a double agent who kind of has to work for the gangsters and kind of has to infiltrate this mob family, and things just go crazy from that point on. And I really don't want to spoil it anymore because it really is something that you need to see for yourself, because The Raid 2 really is the action movie, in my opinion, of the year in terms of bringing you something quite surprising that you may have seen before, but taken to a whole nother level. And that's why it's number 9 on this list. Going on to number 8 is the perfect movie to bring out the child in me this year, and that was the Lego Movie. Now look, I'm sure all of us grew up with Legos, so the concept of them being able to make an entire movie based off of these toys, which is pretty much based off of your own imagination, I thought was a really unique experience. And I gotta tell you, that song that movie gives you, that did get stuck in my head for a few weeks, and I guess sometimes I hum it every once in a while. And I really cannot wait for them to do the next Lego movie, which, if I remember correctly, they want to do a Batman Lego movie, because obviously Batman was the semi-star of this particular film, and Emmett was kind of underplayed a couple times, but this was still a very enjoyable movie. I absolutely would have suggested that you guys have seen this not only with your family, but any young nephews. So I'm sure this is the type of movie that I'm sure every member of the family would have enjoyed, which makes it, in my opinion, the perfect family movie of 2014. And that's why it is number 8 on this list. Going on to number 7, I picked the absolutely funniest film of this year, was undoubtedly 22nd Jump Street. Holy hell. I mean, talk about surprises. I mean, this is a sequel to a movie that this is undoubtedly one of the most self-aware movies I've seen in a very long time. I mean, the movie from the very beginning, it acknowledges that they're surprised that there's even a second movie, because they didn't expect the first one to be so much of a success. And really, in a whole, this movie is pretty much just 80% of the first movie just switched around. Certain roles are switched, and I have to tell you, there's a certain scene in the middle of this movie involving Jonah Hill and Ice Cube and Channing Tatum that I'm not lying when I say this. When I saw this in theaters, this got the biggest laugh reaction I think I've ever heard in a movie theater in my life. And, I just hope I can experience that amount of laughter in one area again very soon, because it is an absolutely amazing experience to laugh that hard with such a really into it crowd, and that's why I had to put it on this list as number 7. Going on into number 6 is a movie that was really badly promoted, and I'm happy that it made its money back, and hopefully we get a second one to this movie, and that is Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow really was kind of like, in my opinion, like the ultimate gamer type movie, because the whole concept of play, die, repeat, it's kind of like a trial and error game, like a lot of games are these days. I thought it was a really interesting concept. In fact, I think this was based off of an anime from Japan, I believe. I may be wrong on that. And I thought that Tom Cruise, once again, although Tom Cruise may have some of his crazier moments in the past, he has proven that he is still the action star that he was back in the 90s. And I was also very surprised that Emily Blunt was so well-rounded for this type of movie. I mean, this is the type of role I really never would have expected her to have been able to pull off so flawlessly, and I really just cannot wait where this story can go. Although the ending was a little bit too much, you know, Hollywood typical perfect bow wrapped. Hopefully, if we do get a second one, maybe they might twist things up a bit and give us a little bit much more of an edge, because I'm sure Edge of Tomorrow would really have been a much better film if it just didn't end the way it did. I really would have wished they would have left it a little bit open, but, you know, heck, that's just what I would think. Some people thought the ending was perfect, but heck, whatever. That's why it's number 6 on this list. Going on to number 5 is another movie that also was, in my opinion, one of the best sequels to a reboot of a franchise ever, and that is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I absolutely love the first film. I love how they were able to continue the story but add a lot more emotion. I like that we had a very fascinating antagonist with Koga. I hope I say his name right. And I really like the interactions between the human characters and Caesar. And I'm telling you, after seeing this film, they really need to acknowledge this mocap acting technique and give Andy Serkis an award, because that dude is the master of this type of acting, and I really don't think we're ever going to see anyone be able to match his level of quality. He deserves an award, and this type of acting technique needs to be acknowledged, because, heck, I mean, all you're seeing is computer generated. Everything else is coming from the actors. The actors are giving performances, and it's the equivalent of wearing a simple costume. That's all it really is. So Hollywood, get off your asses, give Andy Serkis an award, a serious award like an Oscar or an Academy Award, and let's see more of this type of acting techniques done in future films, because it will be needed. And that's why it's number 5 on this list. Going on to number 4 is the visual specter of the year, and I picked Interstellar, coming from my all-time favorite director, Christopher Nolan. Now, I'll admit, Interstellar was not his best film, and it's certainly not his worst, because it's, in my opinion, he's never made a bad film. But Interstellar really was the visual spectacle of the year. I mean, this is the one movie that I say that if I could pick any movie to watch in IMAX, it would be this one. And it is probably one of the best space exploration movies of all time, probably since Space Odyssey. Some people said that, and some people even say it's better than that. And although I will admit this movie was almost flawless up until like the last 15 minutes, which a lot of people have also agreed with me, saying that if they had removed that last section, I think this movie would have ended perfectly. And I really like how a movie like this can actually challenge me to think. I like that type of movie, and that's why I really like Christopher Nolan movies the most, because they challenge my mind. I mean, for God's sake, I had to read a book in order to kind of get the gist of why the ending played out the way it did, even though I'm still kind of reading through it and still being a little bit confused. I mean, I get the feeling that you really need to get a degree in physics and astronomy to really understand this movie, which wouldn't be a bad thing. And that's why it's number 4 on this list. Going on into number 3, I picked 300: Rise of an Empire. Now, unfortunately for something like Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, which they waited so long, which is why the movie bombed, I actually like that we finally got a sequel to 300, because 300 was undoubtedly my favorite movie of 2007, and I'm a little bit puzzled why it took so long, but it was well worth the wait. I loved how we were able to focus on not just the Spartans this time, but we were focused on the Athenians, and we focused on the Battle of Salamis. I'm a big history buff fan, and I absolutely love the period of time between the Greeks and the Persians. Hopefully, I've heard that they might be working on a third one, so they might be able to spit the third one out a lot sooner, and I actually did get a chance to read the novel that Frank Miller wrote for this, which was titled Xerxes, and just everything about this film, it really worked. We saw different perspectives of this war. I really like going back to this style, although some people thought that the CGI blood was a little bit fake, and I'm willing to agree. However, this is the movie that did kind of make that kind of filming techniques kind of cool, so it was kind of an excuse to let go So which is why it didn't bother me in this film as it would be in other films. And I'm just really curious to see what they'll add in the third film. I mean, I have an idea of what battle they may project in the third film if they do decide to kick that off, but I mean, technically, you kind of saw it a little bit in the first film. But anyway, 300, Rise of an Empire was a great film. It was a great sequel. It was well worth the wait, and I just cannot wait for the finale of this franchise or this trilogy, if that ever happens to come, and that's why it's number 3 on this list. Going on into number 2, I picked Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now, I'll admit, I was never a big fan of the first Captain America movie, and to me, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is by far the best individual superhero film I have seen since The Dark Knight. Way better than Dark Knight Rises, way better than Man of Steel, and I can understand why Warner Bros. Would have wanted to move Batman vs. Superman and not make it go head-to-head against Captain America 3, because if that was the case, I'd go see Captain America, because I have to say, they did a lot with this character that I didn't really expect. The Winter Soldier is an absolutely fantastic character, which I have had time to actually read a little bit about him in the comic books, which actually kind of teases what they might do with his character in future films. And I really have to say that Marvel has proven me wrong. I always thought that Marvel could only tell a certain type of format with its storytelling, how it projected its superhero films, but I gotta say, Captain America: Winter Soldier really brought it down to earth and gave it a much different tone than I was expecting, and I really hope this continues with future Marvel films, because if it can do that, then I really don't think Warner Brothers and DC has a chance. And that leads me to number 1. By far, my favorite movie of 2014 had to be X-Men: Days of Futures Past. This was my number 1 most anticipated movie of this year, and I am happy to say that this movie not only reached my expectations, it blew them away. This movie was so awesome. I can think of hardly any flaws, and not only was this movie cool, well, number 1, it made X-Men 3 relevant. I mean, a lot of us like to really crap on that movie, but this movie not only made itself good and sets up events for the future, now that we know that Apocalypse is coming, but it actually makes X-Men 3 kind of a good movie, because now it's kind of understandable why the franchise had to go so bad, so there was a reason to go back in time to fix it and make it relevant again. So it's just so amazing that Bryan Singer coming back to the franchise, the franchise that really kicked off the whole big superhero boom back in, I believe, like 99, was able to come back, make all these changes, and bring the franchise back to glory, which is why, in my opinion, this is not just one of the best team films. This is by far the best team film I think I'm going to see for a long time. I don't even think Avengers 2 and the first official Justice League movie are going to be this good. And that is why X-Men: Days of Futures Past is my number 1 favorite movie of 2014. And with that, that is my particular list. And I would really like to know, what were some of your guys' favorite movies of 2014? Please share your list with me in the comments down below. And if you like this video, feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to check me in my future tops list videos for the end of the year. Like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.